me. So I know the... I'm not an alcoholic, and today we're talking about the Hero 10 from an FPV perspective. Let's get started.
Well, I'm a liar, I'm a boozer, I'm a bastard and abuser, and I'm wondering how much lower can I go? I've been beaten, I've been bloodied, I've been broken and betrayed, and I'm wondering how much lower can I go? Found her with another man, I was thrown into confusion. All the world I thought was true, it's nothing but illusion. So now I'm a liar, I'm a loser, I'm a bastard and abuser, and I'm wondering how much lower can I go? I've been beaten, I've been bloodied, I've been broken and betrayed, wondering how much lower can I go? Even though I know it's wrong, I wish my pain upon the world. I curse the lives of lucky men. Into this hell I hope they're hurled.
So we're talking about the Hero 10 from an FPV perspective. I wanted to know whether or not this was actually going to be worth it as somebody who's looking to upgrade from, let's say, a Hero 8 or Hero 7, or the off chance you just have to have the latest and greatest, you want to upgrade from that Hero 9. Is this essentially worth it from somebody who wants to strap this to a drone? So I spent the day flying this and really putting it through its paces, and I feel like I got some interesting results. And I'm not gonna be, pessimistic about this. I'm being optimistic. I'm trying to keep it a glass half full, even though my beer is still slightly full. So hopefully we get to the half full stage about here. But I've got some clips. I wanna play some samples for you. We're not gonna do any comparisons because we're just really focused on the Hero 10. And if you like what you see out of the Hero 10, then great. If you don't, then you don't. So comparisons really aren't gonna help you. But we'll touch more on this here in just a moment. With that being said, here are some video samples. Alrighty, so I ran this through the most common frame rates, minus like 2.7K and 1080p, because a lot of people like to use 4K lately. So I did 4K 30, 4K 120, since that's the newest frame rate, and then I also tested 5.3K, 30 frames per second in the 4x3 mode, since that is new, since it's gonna give you a little wider perspective. So here's my findings. In 4K, 30 frames per second, I think this did actually pretty decent. Now for freestyle, I will just tell you that Hypersmooth 4.0 is just slightly too aggressive. If you're somebody who likes to showcase all your movements, especially if you're somebody who flies, what are the kids calling this nowadays? Spanks? Anyways, if you're somebody who does a lot of those TikToking movements, the biggest issue I see with Hypersmooth 4.0 is that it sort of mutes some of those movements, and it takes just a second or so before it actually figures out the direction that this is going. So if you're somebody who can fly smooth but likes the color and likes the clarity coming out of the Hero 10, then you may just want to turn off Hypersmooth altogether, and that would work just as well. But for the vast majority of pilots, they're buying this because they want that little added stabilization to try to smooth out some of those flights. Now I am talking about this primarily from a freestyle perspective and not that of a cinematic pilot. The second frame rate that I tried and resolution was 4K 120. It's 4K 120 frames per second. I've never flown 4K 120, but one of the biggest bummers is that it doesn't come in at a wider perspective, so you're just locked at linear, which sometimes isn't quite as wide, but I think it works pretty decently if you're looking for something different than your average freestyle video. Then 4K 120 does render some pretty interesting results. And the fact that you can put this in a 30 frames per second timeline and really slow it down is pretty interesting. Now, I would have loved to see Super View at 120. I think that would be amazing because you capture way more of the frame. Me personally, I'm not a big fan of that linear profile, so I don't ever use it. I'm always in Super View with the Heroes. And, but I gotta say, I did like the fact that I could slow down the footage, and I think the footage looked pretty good. The last profile that I tried, or the last resolution and lens sort of perspective, was 5.3K, 30 frames per second in the 4x3 mode. And at this point, this is where things got a little interesting. So as I started flying, I noticed as I was switching over to the different resolutions, this thing was getting ridiculously hot, like super hot, hotter than normal, hotter than my Hero 8s, hotter than the Hero 9 had ever gotten, and I started becoming concerned. Now, part of the flight that I got with the 5.3 never actually finished because the Hero turned off and it stopped recording. Now, one thing to take into an account, this is where that glass half full comes into play. Fuck, that's a waste. That is a pure waste. Is that I am in Florida, and Florida is hotter than shit. It's like hell with humidity. And this was getting really hot, and by the time I landed back to check the GoPro to shut it off, it was already off, which was a bit of a bummer. But the recording was still there, and it just sort of cut out mid-flight. So that's something you're gonna wanna think about, is that if you're filming at 5.3K, is that it's just not gonna be able to handle those hotter climates. Now, I was flying for about 4.5 minutes when this cut off. So I got a good majority of the flight in. Half of the time when I am flying for about 5.5 to 6 minutes, and it wasn't able to handle all of that at 5.3K. Now, just to give you perspective, today it was about 93 degrees outside and 100% humidity. It was hotter than hell, but it wasn't able to handle it. So I found that a little bit disappointing. Now with my Hero 8, Hero 6, and even with my Hero 7, I've never had them turn off on me, even at 4K 60. But I think for the vast majority of FPV pilots, you're probably gonna be flying at 2.7K or even 4K, and I think you'll be okay with just 4-minute and 5-minute flights. Another thing to take into an account was that I was flying back to back to back, and in that period of time, this was getting really hot, and it was probably just on the brink of turning off. And I would say that when I wanted to go back and watch the footage at the spot I was flying, I couldn't even play back the footage. There was no audio, it was lagging. So this was definitely probably pushed to its thermal limits. So I'm not really all that happy with that aspect of it, but I mean, it's to be expected. 5.3 is a taxing resolution, and at 60 frames per second and 30 frames per second, that you're asking a lot for something in such a small package. But with that being said, do I recommend this for somebody who's looking to do freestyle FPV? And the answer is no. I would still recommend the Hero 8 even without the removable lens, or even the Hero 9 giving its weight. I feel like the stabilization, it's there, but it's more of an assistant. It's not replacing your flight skill. This stabilization, and this is sort of like weird that I'm knocking the stabilization, but the stabilization's batshit crazy, and it sort of mutes some of the movements that make freestyle FPV what it is. So you may just want to buy this and then just say, well, screw it, I'm going to turn the stabilization off. Now, for all these tests, I did fly in the standard color profile. I think the colors look better, and I did notice like there was more detail in the grass, even with the sharpness set to medium. Now, I have plenty more tests coming up with the Hero 10. I'm going to be running it through a series of paces in which, you know, some of you have asked me to look at. So we're going to look at it from all perspectives before I give you a full review. But that's just what I found so far. I'm out of breath, and probably alcohol doesn't help. But anyways, that's going to do it for this video. This was a shit show. And if you enjoyed, be sure to hit the subscribe button. And you know what? I think I'm going to be giving away a Hero 10. This is actually a spare Hero 10. I think what we're going to do is by the end of all of these videos, we're going to give away this Hero 10 to somebody, some lucky viewer. I'll figure out a creative way to make this to where you can enter for it, but we'll give away a Hero 10 because I hate it so much I want to give one away. All right, that's going to do it for today's video. If you enjoyed, you can hit the dislike button, and if you didn't enjoy, you can hit the like button. See, it's reverse psychology. Happy October. Maybe I'm rushing things. I'm rushing. Stay original. What's going on, everybody? Ken here. You're watching OriginaldoBo. And yes, I've had 2 or 3 beers before I sat down and filmed this, but that just helps takes the edge.